All right, everybody. We're going to get ready to start. Can somebody give me a microphone check, make sure I can be heard?
We hear you.
Good deal. Okay, so we're going to do just kind of a quick roll call. And it looks like I think everybody on here, with the exception of Julie, I know. Julie, can you tell me where you're from?
Hi, I'm Julie DiPaolo, and I am the new Educator and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator at Holy Family Hospital.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the crew.
Thank you.
All right, and I think I got everyone else here, so we're good there. And I did go ahead and start the recording, so we will have this transcript basically for later. That way, we can document as we need, and it gives us something when I go back after the fact to remember, what did I say? Now I can see it. What we're going to do, just a real brief kind of meeting today for the first part of it. The second part will be more topic and discussion. We're going to start off just kind of, talking about what the multi-year training and exercise program is, why do we need it, what are our goals and objectives. These are the things we kind of define, and they'll have a big impact on how we go forward. The development component, we're going to talk about the capabilities-based training and exercises. We'll look at what we've done historically, what we've done recently, and what we're doing or planning to do, hope to do in the future. I will put the caveat that everything is dependent on COVID when it comes to the outside training and exercises, because as we all know, that's been basically the main drain for every resource the last almost 2 years now. So with that, what I'm going to do is hand this over to Eric and have him, we're going to kind of tag team this. We've been working on it internally, and have him jump in.
All right, Lee, I'm here.
All right. So you want to address what the TEP is, what, kind of where we're trying to get to?
Right. So I know we discussed this on our last monthly coalition call. Actually, I think it was our quarterly coalition call. And what we're trying to do is develop a MyTEP, which is our multi-year training and exercise plan, so that, and we're trying to do it also on a regional basis. So I know that when you look at stuff that you're trying to do at the hospital level, some of that plays into what we do as a region, because some hospitals may have similar concerns and stuff about what training and exercises we need to conduct in order to make ourselves proficient in skills that may be perishable, and allows us to work on not only education, like what courses we need to bring in, but also what exercises do we need to conduct to help with the training that we received, to kind of put it all together and, and actually try to use what we've learned in a practical application sense. And so that's kind of why that's really what the MyTEP is for, is so that we can develop a training calendar based off of themes or based off of issues or stuff that we've identified from, our THIRAs or HVAs, to kind of see what it is that we really need to, work on this year. So for example, if we know we're going to be in it's going to be a high tornado season based off of all the information that we're receiving, then that might be a focus for that particular year over something else like like school shootings or something along those lines, where we may know that based off of historics, those are very low, so we don't necessarily have to go that far. So that's really why that's what a MyTEP is that we really need to take a look and focus on what it is that our priorities are each year, so that we can, address those issues as they come up. That's all I got, Lee.
All right, thank you. Okay, so and the why do we need one component is because they say we have to. I mean, that's not the only impetus, but that's a big one. Is it's a requirement for the grant. We do have to do a training and exercise planning workshop. We have to have a guiding document, something that kind of helps to keep us on track. Think of this as our roadmap for the future. When we talk about goals and objectives, that's where things get a little more persnickety, because like we talked, we look at our HVA, we look at the THYRAs that are done across the region. And as you're aware, we haven't completed our HVA. We're still working through that. We have a pretty good understanding, I think, as far as organizationally, what our different organizations face. And in our communities, we have a pretty decent understanding of what our biggest challenges are. So I think we can kind of push forward and at least get the rough draft of our TEP, our training and exercise plan. We can get that kind of drafted out based on that information, and then we can refine it. The one thing about this is not a one and done type of deal. The training and exercise plan is a living document. As we face new threats, new challenges, new concerns, whatever it may be, we can go through and adapt and adjust and tweak. You know, God forbid that we suddenly have Nipah or some other Ebola or you pick it that comes in, and we have to really alter our training regime to go towards that. We can do that if we're facing other threats. You know, suddenly we get the, hey, we're 6 months out from a giant asteroid that we missed. Yeah, maybe we'll plan for that. We can adjust. The whole thing is flexibility. So kind of keeping that in mind, what we're going to do, like I said, is throw up here in just a moment on the screen the previously completeds, the recently completeds, and the hope fors going forward. I'm going to go ahead and try to drag that over, and somebody just let me know if you can see it. Can everyone see the matrix? Okay, I see a thumb from Tina there. All right, so Eric, this was your baby. I'm going to let you brief this. Folks, like we talked about, this is just going to talk about, again, where we were, where we're at, and where we're going. And from this and from what you've already done within your internal HVAs, this is where we want to hear your input on what you think based on what we have. Either needs to come off, needs to go on, or maybe we missed something completely and got the cart way before the horse. I'm going to hand it over to Eric.
All right. So when we look at, you know, again, talking about training and exercise scheduling, one of the things that we're, you know, attempting to do is program increasingly complex exercises, building on capabilities that we've already either through exercise or through training acquired, and then kind of keep evaluating them. The one thing that I will say is COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in all that, because we started off obviously in 2018 meeting some requirements that individuals had identified that would help them to be better at, you know, with preparedness or being emergency managers, stuff along those lines. So, and the reason why I kind of throw that in is because, you know, when you start off real good and then you got a hiatus, you feel like sometimes you feel like that year or year plus, there's that gap where you didn't get to kind of finish what we started. So in 2018, we started off very strong with, again, the primary focus area of that particular time frame was earthquake, extreme weather, and disaster management. And by looking at the completed training, you can kind of see that, you know, we were looking at check, certain FEMA courses, as well as, you know, of course, keeping up with the, you know, patient decontamination training. But really, when you look at the exercises with the Great Shakeout, that's, you know, an earthquake exercise, winter storm, tabletop, what we're doing is we're taking that training that we've kind of acquired through, you know, organizations and then putting it all together in exercises. And so that's what we did that's what was completed in 2018. Lee, if you don't mind scrolling down just a little bit, yeah, thank you. In 2019, kind of the same thing. It looked like the focus area was Suburni, as well as alternate care sites and hall hazard response. Again, if you look at the training that was conducted at that time frame, you can kind of see that, some of those courses that were provided by the coalition kind of help with addressing some of the educational gaps, and then looking at putting together a complex drill, either using a CCTA, or an MCI, kind of helps with validating that some of the training that you've received. And then of course we had the workshops there in 2019 to kind of help with again aiding and supplementing and the training that you guys have participated in. Now we kind of get into 2020. Now 2020 was a little, obviously we can definitely see it was a little bit of a rough year. Obviously COVID had put a lot of restrictions on meeting as an organization, as a group. And what you can kind of see is we started off in the very beginning with addressing some of the, training gaps like hazmat IQ, doing an early exercise. So when you see March 2020, I mean, these are, fairly early on before we really started clamping down on a lot of the COVID restrictions. But again, with, if you look at hazmat, the accompanying workshops, you see ChemPack and various parts of, CCTAs that have, obviously with, there's, with the terrorist activities, there's obviously some form of, maybe chemical dispersion or something like that. So it kind of plays all together and accompany each other. So now, with that being said, we're trying to look at 2021 and focus on what areas that we can still have between now and basically the end of December, and then moving into 2022 and looking at what we're trying to do for that year as well, moving forward. So again, like I said, with 2020 being kind of that funk, now we got to kind of figure out what does 2021 and going forward looks like. So this is where I'll need some input from the group on determining what training you think you need, what training did you not find, what training or what exercises do you think that you wanted to finish up that may have not gotten finished, that kind of moves us a little bit forward from where we're at. Any thoughts?
Hi, this is Tina. Can you hear me or not?
Yep, I got you, Tina. Let's get what you got.
Oh, fiddlesticks. I know that we had looked at the whole, with the hazmat part that we had to, because of COVID, we had to stop. And I think maybe that would be another thing over the next 3 to 5 years we probably need to look at, and probably maybe something with pediatrics.
Hey, Tina, it's Lee. When you say the hazmat thing, which perspective are you talking? I will say, just so everyone knows, going forward, we will have a minimum of 6 decon classes per calendar year that will be hosted basically by the coalition with support from the St. Clair Special Services from the hazmat side. And then of course your inter-facility, decon classes that you run yourselves, you're definitely able to do beyond the 6 that we do. So those will definitely be going forward, because that's an institutional requirement. We have to do that in order to meet the OSHA and do all of that. Is there more from a hazmat interest that you're seeing outside of just decon?
I was, sorry, Lee, I was just thinking about that we didn't do the Kimpac that we was going to do.
Yeah, we are going to do that in 2022. We're actually working with the contractor that was doing that, Haggerty Consulting. We're actually working with them to get the final draft and get all of everything ready to execute. And we're looking, I believe, around an April timeframe for that.
That's awesome.
Now, I want to touch on something else you said, and I welcome everyone else to please dive in, because, you know, I'm not a parent, so to me, pediatrics means something different than everyone else. You know, Eric's been sitting on our regional pediatric working group for the state, and going through all of the EDAP meetings and basically everything that, you know, goes along with that. We've talked some about incorporating more pediatrics into everything that we do from a training perspective, but is there specific pediatric coursework or training programs that we could bring into the region that would benefit those facilities, you know, that need that requirement, whether it's for EDAP or SEDP?
I know Brad's out there. I think he's on. Brad, what do you think about pediatrics?
Julie, Sonia, Gary, anybody, Georgia?
Well, I'll jump in real quick. I know Tim Claxton, it's usually who I get all of my information from, and I kind of lean on Brad a little bit too. Whenever I'm talking to Tim about emergency preparedness, he always says, work as much peds in as you possibly can. And when I ask him for like his insight for this particular meeting, he said, you know, if we can do any drills or any planning, you know, to work in peds, you know, throw in an idea about a school bus, or, you know, whether it's a school shooting, work in something like that, or work in that, you know, maybe it was an accident and it involved a school bus full of kids, or maybe it was a daycare or something like that. Just throw in that element of a pediatric issue. It's going to cover us from the EDAP perspective.
Well, I agree that it'll cover us, but I guess my concern is I can throw peds into any exercise. It's what can we do to make sure that we're giving the best care to the peds? Is there courses that we can bring in that might help the clinical staff to do better with it? Because we're not pediatric hospitals here, so I don't know what I don't know.
Hey, this is Gary Knowlton.
Yep.
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so pediatrics, I think one thing that we need to work on, and I think it's what I see, is reunification. You know, talking about actually drilling on that and testing on that and kind of going into more detail. So I see that for pediatrics.
Okay.
I'm so glad you said that. That's the one thing that I could not think of. Reunification. Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can look and see if there's something to train. Go ahead, Tina.
I agree with what they said also.
Okay. So we'll look at reunification. I mean, maybe there's some training that we can find that, you know, I know they talked briefly about it in the Management 439 class that we just brought in. But I mean, it doesn't go into any huge amount of great detail. We'll have to do some additional digging and see what else we can to drum up on that one. Maybe there's something else there. I mean, at the risk of asking a loaded question, because again, I'm out of my swim lane here. I know we have like TNCC, your trauma nurse core curriculum, that focuses on your ED nurses that handle the blood, guts, and the gore, the stuff I'm happier with. Is there a pediatric equivalent to that we might look at that might help better prepare your ED staff? Is that something that would be beneficial?
Lee, I don't know if this is part of that, but Red Cross, they had that program that would help us no matter who it was, if there was a disaster such where we needed to help with reunification of either pediatrics or just even family. And I know that program, as far as my understanding is gone. So maybe part of that resource is there also something out there to help us to do that?
Okay, yeah, we can try to look at like NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There may be something there that could assist us. Because that's who basically everything's going to run through there. From a PEDS perspective, is there anything else that anybody can think of that might, that we might just be missing? Okay. Then we'll move on from that, and let's talk about other things that we know we're going to need. We know we've got let's look at our HVAs and just our general thing. When we've looked at the HVAs in the past, we've had severe weather being, one of our tops. One of the low probability, highest impact being, natural disaster wise, being earthquakes. I know we have in the past done some things with that. What type, from that perspective, things we can help your facility to better prepare for the natural hazards on your HVA? Anyone have any suggestions, things that we might be able to look at to help with that?
Yeah, this is Gary. So yeah, like in our top 5, we have a tornado and severe thunderstorm. So 2 of them are severe weather. I think anything to help us with it. I don't know of anything specific right now, but any kind of training or education on that would be good.
Okay. And on the earthquake front, I know Rick was in the training that we brought in a couple of years ago from the folks down in CUSEC, the Central U.S. Earthquake Consortium. And I don't remember, Gary, if you were there for that one or not, but is that something that people would find beneficial? For those that aren't aware, what this is oriented towards is like your facilities folks, the guys who can, who are responsible for maintaining your campuses and keeping your buildings standing. Would this be something that would help them, you think? And
yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say hello, Sue. I see you've joined us. Thank you. And Terry. But go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, so I think it'd be very beneficial. We just we live near the fault and we just think it won't happen, but I think it'd be very beneficial for facilities to, know exactly what to do or if they have questions or anything like that. So I think it'd be very beneficial for facilities in general.
Okay. Anybody got any, other types of things? Like we talked, we can do any drill. We can basically build a pediatric component into it. We can incorporate PEDS. That part is, if it's a full-scale incident or full-scale exercise, I should say, it gets a little more challenging because we got to find kids during the school year. Yeah, if it's a non-school time, that is a little easier. Is there, at the risk of asking a stupid question, is there a benefit to us maybe doing some tabletops that we can share with you from an outside perspective to run inside of your facility, even things that might address other topics? I know not everybody has devoted people who do nothing but emergency management related topics. If Eric and I were to generate up some basically canned tabletops for y'all, would that be something that would benefit you?
Yeah, big time, because like you said, I have a lot of hats. It's hard for me to put together tabletops and spend the time I need to on them. So if you could have any kind of a canned tabletop or anything, I would be much appreciated that I could use and I could adapt for our facility. So I'd be big for that.
All right. mean, it's something we kind of kicked around in the past, but just never went anywhere with it yet. That's definitely something I think we can maybe help out with. If there's topics that people would like to see, we can try to do more generalized. The idea of this is to be thought-provoking, discussion-provoking, getting people to inside of your own facilities to communicate amongst themselves about a situation that may develop. Go ahead, Sue.
I was wondering, so like in our county or our area over here, Jim Pitchford's putting together and working a bunch of guys with the ham radios. He came through with like 5 of them. I added all their names to our TICP, but he's doing like monthly drills where they go to different hospitals and different ham radio areas to increase the infrastructure of ham radio communications.
Uh-huh.
And is that something we could incorporate into our regional Hope Coalition drilling, some ham radio activity?
Well, that's a really great question. So I'll tell you from my facilities issues, our local amateur radio club's not been greatly supportive of us, especially since COVID. Actually, the guy we worked with unfortunately passed on just recently. So that is a topic I would love to see. Being a ham myself since I was like 15, it's something I think there's a good use for. And like, for example, Gary, do you guys have a relationship with your local club to come in and facilitate communications for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a coincidence you talked about that. I was just looking and reaching out to them. We haven't really, since COVID, we really haven't talked to them very much. So yeah, we do have a local resource. We just need to reach out to them.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that's definitely something we can do. And it actually does, it reaches across several concerns. There's obviously been a whole lot right now with the risks to critical infrastructure from you pick it, whether it's, loss of power, loss of whatever. The idea of redundant communications, that's going to be a critical component. So we will definitely push and look forward to that and see what we can come up with. I would encourage every campus to reach out, find out who your ham radio contacts are. And if you don't mind, if you want to send, verify with them that it's okay, but send my information to them or send theirs to me. And we'll actually try to do like a coordinated from a region level, try to get ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Services kind of folks together and see if we can't schedule something. It definitely needs to be done. I know all the hospitals were purchased radios on the grant many years ago. So everyone should have some form of ham capability. If not, please do let us know.
Hey, Lee, this is Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Question for you. Is it possible in an exercise coming up that we could utilize ham radio operators like you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's always a possibility. It's easier to do it when it's a larger incident, like something that's going to be a region-wide affecting, natural disaster or something to that effect, because that's more realistically where we're going to implement them. And I think we can definitely do that. I don't know that the ChemPAC exercise is really the appropriate location to do that for a variety of reasons. But the idea of doing another, whether it's we do a severe storm, we can do some kind of a functional exercise where each hospital would stand up their command center and their communications, and we would just relay for the period of the exercise via amateur radio. That I think is definitely a realistic thing that can be done.
Could we incorporate that maybe in a surge exercise like we do that? What's the surge exercise we've done the last couple of years? The name escapes me.
Yeah, the Coalition Surge Test, I think, is what you're talking about.
Right.
The problem with doing that is the ham side of the communications, we can't really pass any sensitive traffic.
Yeah.
And so it would be hard to do like the patient movement perspective via that. However, if we were doing, whether we did even just a simulated, call it we'll call it the I don't know, ice quake, call it a winter ice storm that knocked out power to the region, and we're communicating via that because nothing else works. We could do that as even as a tabletop to a degree. And you would be able to pass along. We actually have a form that's a part of the coalition TICP, but an actual message form that you can go line by line, and your radio operator would be able to pass on what your facility status is, the number of patients broken down by category. You're not giving any information that's considered confidential, but you're giving basically the same kind of thing you would give via EM resource, and just doing it via the radio.
Okay.
I mean, I can definitely work towards trying to get something put together. We just have to make sure everybody's got a radio operator to be able to do it. And that right now, I know for us, part of the problem is make sure your facilities will let you bring them in the facility to do it. With COVID, it's been challenging to say the least.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the suggestion. That's a great idea. It's something we don't do enough of. And Rick, since you're on the line, you were here for the earthquake course that we brought up from down in Memphis.
Yeah.
Do you think there'd be a benefit to trying to do something like that again?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's, it's like for myself, okay, speaking for myself, if you don't use the skill set, you're going to forget it. And I think that almost as a yearly refresher, because it was all related to non-structural items, and then how to view, quick captioning, structural integrity of buildings and what to look for. And yeah, I think it would be terrific. And the more people that are aware of that, the better, in my opinion.
Okay. And I know there's been a lot of turnover in a lot of departments. I don't know how the facilities side of healthcare has fared. I know nursing has been, obviously hit hard. So if there's new facility folks, it's probably a benefit there. So we'll reach out to them and just see kind of what the opportunities are in that regard. And Sue, since you're here and you're a nurse who I know is never shy. We talked earlier about any other nursing courses outside of TNCC that might be beneficial to the region. Things we could look at that might help us to ensure we're, as well prepared for whatever may come.
Well, trauma nurse TNCC is probably the best one for like disaster preparedness, if you will, for nurses. I mean, we got to have a lot of other credentials, but they aren't very specific to, what could happen. I mean, there's OB and infant, neonatal, and cardiac, and all of those are specific to health problems, not specific to, like, not everybody's going to have a heart attack at the same time, right?
Sure.
Not everybody's going to have a baby at the same time. So I don't feel like any of those other credentials that in my world we need would be needed for our coalition to support. I think the trauma is the best, workshop. The TNCC is the best one for disaster preparedness. I really am glad that is in our basket.
And that's one we just kind of continue to keep doing because we know there's always going to be that need. I guess what I was hoping to hear was, and again, it's because it's an area that I'm not comfortable, realistically, is pediatrics. Is there a general pediatrics thing that might be beneficial to the campuses from a nursing perspective?
Well, the other side of the coin for TNCC is ENPC, Emergency Pediatrics. Pediatrics course also hosted and sponsored by the ENA. Same format as TNCC, only specific to kiddos, not just trauma though, but it does teach a whole lot more than what like just a PALS class gives. I mean, if I had to choose between PALS and ENPC, I'd hit ENPC every time because it drills you on assessment, and you're not going to miss anything. And, you know, those assessments are what is so important to pick up on those, you know, chemical exposures that could come in, you know, mass illnesses, you know, coming in groups. Those assessment skills are what our nurses really need. And so specific to pediatrics, the ENPC course, it's like a 2-day course, just like TNCC. It's good for 4 years, you know, just like TNCC. So it's a longer certificate. But you do have to have instructors, and you do have to have that structure for the class that someone who's already done TNCC would be very familiar with. I think we have some instructors in the ARCH circles that are getting ready to kick off some of those first classes. They've taken their instructors classes, and they're getting ready to start offering that through ARCH Air Methods. But it would be really nice if we had somebody within our coalition that could offer that to the nurses.
Excellent. That's what I was hoping to hear, because I don't know what's out there and what's not. I had to figure there was something. I just wasn't sure. So that is definitely something we'll try to look towards, and you know, we'll try to hit that, because I'll tell you that, you know, the pediatrics part is something that through COVID we've been fairly lucky, but you know, it still could be a real problem. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
Lee, the one thing that I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of, and when I say this, I'm speaking of what I witness at our own facility as being current issues, is that if we really try to concentrate on nursing and training programs for nursing, we're not going to have a good turnout from our end. You know, I'm struggling with that right now with the class that I've got scheduled with you October 6th, that our staffing is in such a position that right now, nobody really wants to attend training outside of the work that they're doing, and B, management is in a position right now that they're saying, well, we're not going to send anybody. And that is really specific with nursing. So, you know, while there is a lot of nursing style training and so forth out there, I think this may be the opportunity for us to look at the training that's not specifically nursing, that would involve techs, lab people. The one interesting thing I just heard somebody talk about was facilities people, and drills with that. But I'll tell you, if you know, we come up with a nursing only qualify type of training, you know, on our end, we're going to be very hard pressed to send anybody to any training whatsoever until we start seeing some breathing room with our nursing staff.
And that's a good point, Brad. And I guess I should have prefaced, we're looking not just now, I mean, we're looking within the next 3 years. We're looking out, because it's going to take time, one, to coordinate it, but two, you know, we kind of have to prioritize it all. And so I agree, getting people to show up to training right now of any form is challenging, because healthcare took a huge hit over the last year and a half. So we'll definitely do that. I do like, you know, again, the idea of getting facilities, the guys who are going to keep the structures, well, running, involved in doing more, because it doesn't matter how many nurses you have if the hospital isn't safe to have them in. So, you know, we'll be looking at that perspective as well. And of course, your decon stuff will still continue to go on, because it is still something we are mandated we have to do. I see Phil joined us. Phil, you have any insight?
Nothing specific. I think, you know, as we put this together, it just has to be well-rounded. So yeah, I mean, there are, like when we talk about the TNCCs or something that may be nursing specific, I think that, and I don't know if Eric or you talked about this earlier, that, you know, we have to have the long tents in the pole, the things that are consistent and either well attended, or things that, you know, we know that there is a consistent need for that's there. And then try to find the kind of on the wings, so to speak, type of training, the more support level training and things that are a little more outside the box. I know when I was listening, I think it was Rick earlier, or someone talking about earthquake preparedness and the class we brought in then. So I see it from, I think I try to look at it from multiple angles, that we just have to be consistent with some training that's probably going to affect nursing at a high clip, as far as the uptake is like, okay, yeah, this is directly applies to nurses. And then the other support level training, which could be either universal training or targeted groups. I know you're just talking about lab and the like, or X-ray, it's some of those still, again, I think they're going to be few and far between, hard to come by. The structural side of the house, the maybe security side of the house, those are areas, so facility security, and maybe even one thing that we don't look at is food, and then just general planning for those who have functional access needs, whether they're deaf, blind, or the like, some of those type of trainings that anyone can take part in, and just have, administrators can take part in. So again, really want to have the long tents or long poles in the tent, the ones that are going to be consistent, that are going to focus around nursing, and then try to fill up around those, EMS as well. So, I don't want to make it hospital centric at all either, but I hope that made sense. At least that's how I see it.
Another thing that came out, and I'm sure most everyone is aware, Joint Commission, as of July 22, they've got 12 pages of upgrades that they're going to have for Joint Commission triennials. So I don't know if there's a need to, maybe not so much a training class, but perhaps focusing some of our monthly meetings, or, a conference calls or something about it, just as a thought.
Sounds good. I mean, I think that's something that we could, incorporate in the MyTEP as well. I mean, as an awareness or component to it all. So.
And I'm sitting here making notes as we go along. I just had something here a second ago. So when we talk about, incident command and control, we talked a bit about communications earlier. I don't know how it is with every other facility. I know I was actually just on a call with our Missouri partners from their coalition earlier today discussing this. What benefit is there for us to do things like bringing in some PIO related matters, or bringing in more of the FEMA courses that we've done in the past that focus on maybe more outside of the direct patient care realm, and how do we deal with the other operations that have to go on, communicating with the community about where the open vaccine clinic might happen to be versus where they think it is. Don't come here for shots, that kind of thing. Classes that might help with development of that. Do you think your internal PIOs would be willing or interested in taking topics of that nature?
This is good. I can just check with our PIO. I don't know the answer to that question, but I could definitely check with her.
I mean, it's one of those things that they brought up when I was talking to them, because there is I don't know what to call it. There's a group of PIOs from public health and healthcare that get together, I guess, but I don't think every hospital's in that clique, as it were. And I think there could be some benefit to, if we can use it as a way to get all of our PIOs together to share and, cooperate and collaborate and, kind of help bring not necessarily the C-suite, but the right outside the C-suite together, and form some of that up somewhat, I guess it is. And going back to something Phil said a minute ago, Brad, specifically towards you and the EMS perspective, I mean, if there's EMS-centric things that you think would be of a benefit, please do let us know, because we do, like the ambulance strike team leader, we try to do the courses of that nature, because that's what we've had previously requested. If there's something else that you think is beneficial, that would help us going forward, please let us know.
Yeah, and there's, and this is good timing, especially when we talk about pediatrics, and Eric, you may have some insight into this. This is when PECC is starting, and for people who are listening in that really don't know what's going on with EMS, but EMS is going to be required to have a pediatric champion, and you're going to have to, and you're going to be also required to do pediatric training. And I know it's like anything that's new that just gets started. If you can organize as a group some kind of training or some kind of drill to really help this and help get it launched off, I think you'll get a lot of EMS buy-in, because every organization is getting to the point where they're going to have somebody involved. So yeah, that's good timing for this, for us to look at something like that.
And I agree with you, Brad. Listening to, like you were saying, out of the preparedness groups, that pediatrics, it's got a life of its own. So and as you also brought up, and Greg Atterbury's also kind of resonated the same thing about having a pediatric champion, is that we are going to have specific things related in training that is going to be required. So we're going to have to address it probably on a yearly basis, that we're always going to have to inject some sort of pediatric training into the plan just to address that particular side.
Okay.
And then Lee, one thing I wanted to ask, and I know it was Phil that kind of touched on it about the long poles in the tent, and I was going to hit it up early, but we went down to communications and some other stuff. But I wanted to ask this question while it was still fresh in my mind, because we have a lot of folks that have assumed new roles in emergency management or preparedness or stuff. We back about 3 years. So if you go back to 2018, we brought in CHEP, one of those, certified hospital emergency preparedness or emergency coordinating courses to help become a better professional in that field, to give us that, so everybody can get that 300-foot view of everything, as when it relates to incident command management and the whole spectrum. Are those courses something that even for the seasoned preparedness coordinator out there that may just say, hey, I need to take a course again just to kind of get brushed up on some stuff that I might have forgotten? Are those things that we need to bring back out so that we can get some of those people who are, who haven't gotten formal training back up to speed? And same thing that goes along with like ICS or ICS 300 and 400. The need for supervisors, people in that field to get that level of training, so that when we do have COVID style issues, we do talk about like pediatric issues with mass casualty incidents, how to manage that incident from that perspective.
Yeah, so this is Gary. So in 2018, I was appointed the emergency management coordinator, along with being the security manager and citizen and communications manager. But anyway, I took the CHEC course a couple months after that, and it was extremely helpful. I walked into something that I knew very little about. I mean, I knew some, being a security manager for 20 years, but I learned a lot at that CHEC course, just basic EM, emergency management, learned about the EOP, things like that. So I found it extremely valuable. So not only, just to someone new, but even for me, those certifications are 2 years. I wouldn't mind taking it again. So I am very pro on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely look at that and try to accommodate that one. That also was going to lead to another question. When we talk about our non-clinical staff and, talk about things that we might be able to do that might help with, whether it's professional development, safety, perspective stuff, I mean, there are other topics that are out there. If there's things that you think we as a coalition can do that will help across the entire house, as it were, hit us up. We don't, we're not, I guess you could say, fluid in every functional area as far as what's out there. So, the same thing goes with the non-clinical, non-hospital side of things. If we've got EMS, or if there's something from a public health perspective, like we brought in previously the shelter and was it shelter management and the other one. We've also had the mass fatality planning, which benefited both hospital and public health. Those type of topics, and a lot of that we can even get on a virtual basis right now if there's an interest in doing those. And then, so we've talked some about training. Let's talk briefly here, and we'll kind of nail down some exercise. We said earlier we would send out some kind of canned tabletops to kind of help y'all, just to give you some topic, I guess you could say topic building type stuff. We'll work on that here internally and try to come up with some templates that you guys can run with. The coalition-wide trainings. We have ChemPAC coming up in April. That's our tentative plan right now, is April. Now, that's a full scale. That's going to be probably the largest exercise we've done since I've been here. We still have the need to do additional training and additional exercises to validate that training. What other, aside from the coalition surge test, which is a mandatory, we know we've got to do that one. What other kinds of exercises do you as coalition members think would be beneficial? I mean, are there areas that we definitely are struggling at that maybe I'm just not seeing or not seeing as severe?
Yeah, I would like to see like a communication exercise, like communication failure, the phone, something like that. Maybe a tabletop for the region. It don't have to be a full-scale exercise or a functional, just maybe a tabletop. I would really like to see that, because communication failure is one of our top 5 in our HVA.
Okay. Anyone have any other topics that strike out at them?
This is Sue from Staunton. Is there any way we could do something with family reunification?
Are we talking in the form of a tabletop, or what scale are we wanting to look at?
Well, I feel like maybe we should have a little bit of a tabletop to talk about what resources we have, what plans we have in place, but then, we could go with a full scale and try to get people across our borders into each other's facilities, and how do we find them and how do we move them? I feel like that's something that doesn't really get addressed during any event, and that's always going to be a big deal.
No, I agree. And I think actually, see, you might be on something there, but I think we'll probably look at that as a workshop, get everybody together with what your existing reunification plans are. Let's kind of share that wealth, because it may be that you're doing something that we hadn't thought of that, might benefit us or benefit Gateway or benefit HSHS. And then as we do that, maybe we can kind of not necessarily come up with a coalition-wide standard per se, but come up with some, like you said, a process that we know if little Timmy went to Staunton, but mom and dad went to Carlinville, how can they, since we don't have the Red Cross tool any longer, what other alternatives might we have that we could implement? And then from there, we can do some tabletop and build off of that to test it out and see how that theory works.
So this is Tina, and I think too, we added to that because of the Red Cross no longer is able to help us do that, trying to find another resource for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. The loss of that tool, we were the only state, ironically, that had that tool, but the loss of that tool is a problem. Danielle, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess to add on to the communications failure, and maybe it's not at the top of everyone's list, our IT infrastructure isn't always the greatest on a good day. And so any challenges with any sort of terrorism or failures in the community as well, like a power outage, as well as electronics and communications failure, all of those things will probably happen at the same time for us. So any sort of adding on to that communications failure as far as the IT infrastructure in a hospital and possibly even a community. I think that we've had fear of blackouts and those sorts of things in the past just because so many of the facilities functions for power and those sorts of things are driven by IT now. That it's not just a storm that would wipe us out, it could also be a failure of IT.
Sure. No, absolutely. I get you. Cyber, you know, anyway, you know, I'm a little distorted in the brain, as y'all know, and I'm picturing the television show Jericho, if anyone's ever seen that one. But you know, I mean, we can scale that up, down, and make that all kinds of entertaining. If you haven't watched Jericho, I highly encourage it. Excellent show. But so tabletops wise, then that gives us a few topics, the workshop for the reunification. And then I think also, like we discussed earlier, the idea of doing a workshop surrounding the alternate communications means, whether it's ham radio, our STARCOM systems and all of that, and working to get everybody kind of to a baseline on that, I think would be a good step in the right direction. And again, that's things that aren't going to necessarily involve your clinical staff. So it's not going to tie up any, you know, or not tie up most of your most valued resource here at the moment, which is your patient space. In terms of functional exercises, I will point out, just so you guys know, you can claim functional exercise when we do your decon training, because we are actually doing full suit boot and the whole shindig. And that form that you fill out during the class at the end can constitute an after action of sorts, because you do review on the form what it was that you did right, did wrong, what resources were utilized, and all that. Definitely something we can do is use the decon classes. The full-scale workshop for next year will definitely be the ChemPAC. There is some discussion from the Missouri side of the river about doing more training jointly between their coalition and ours for a variety of reasons. One, we know that in a real world incident, where do we send the vast majority of our patients, with the exception of Sue and maybe Tina, who send them north and send them east? Everyone else pretty much sends them straight west. They're concerned if something happens to Missouri, they're going to send them heavily east. So they want to work with us to kind of build some exercises that would focus on that type of thing, whether it's evacuating, you know, a hospital or hospitals in the St. Louis region, for you pick a reason, and how we could help to absorb some of that, things of that nature. So there'll be more coming on that. I'm waiting actually for my counterpart over there who's been doing the planning to kind of set up the rest of the meetings for that. But do keep that in mind. It is something that some of our exercises could be broader than what we originally envisioned. Am I missing anything, Eric, Phil?
Not to my knowledge. Are you talking about, when you say missing anything, are you talking about just total in?
Yeah, I know I lost my marbles a long time ago, but am I missing anything in total? Yeah, something that I might have stepped over.
Well, there's Well, for me, I did want to recommend that we do, I don't know if it's quarterly or semi-annually, just a D4H opportunity kind of walkthrough, like, hey, you haven't been in it, let's just jump in and see what's going on in D4H and tinker around, because so many folks, like whether it's the process on how we do resource requests or the log or anything, with regard to the common operating picture portion of it, it's kind of hard to manage that along with an exercise at the same time. So if we're offering maybe some, even if they're 30 minutes, opportunities for folks to log on to a webinar like this, jump in D4H in a sandbox environment, send out the request to jump in, make sure your passwords work, and put some information in the log, do some resource requests, etc. I think that's something that should be a routine that we're doing, and we can again, whether it's quarterly or semi-annually. But I think it should be at a minimum, maybe twice a year that we're doing that, just so folks are in the know.
No, that's a good point. I've just kind of gotten used to everybody submitting their requests through D4H, but you are correct. We don't do enough of that to actually touch on everything else. Everyone seems to know where the resource request is, but making sure that everything else is getting implemented. I'll put that down here on my notes. So directed more towards the folks that have proprietary security, let me ask a couple of questions, because I had a contact reach out to me from ironically, it's the Transportation Security Administration, asking, if we'd have any interest. They offer some training for security, not just for security. I mean, it's good for general house staff as well, but for things like unattended packages, objects that don't belong in the environment, on spotting that and knowing what to do. Would there be a benefit to facilities to have that?
Yeah, this is Gary. Of course, I'm the security manager, and I'm going to say yes. I mean, I think that we could always use more training, more education, and just keep it at the forefront. So, yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, because they've asked me 2 or 3 times, and there was beginning of COVID, and it was kind of since then it's been like, yeah, not a good opportunity. I know right now with the restrictions, it's a lot harder to leave something behind, but it is still a concern. So I'll follow up with them and see if maybe they've virtualized some of it. I'm not sure. Okay, so what we'll do from our side is we are actually working on let me see if I have the document handy here. We are working on a kind of a track document that will go out as a draft for everybody to review. That is just that. It's what we expect to do. It's a living document. It's not something that's set in stone, so it will be evaluated like everything else and updated as needed. I just had to figure out where I put it. Okay, Eric, do you happen to have access? I don't have access to our network drive at the moment.
Which doc are you looking for, Lee?
I was looking for the actual MyTep, but I am having that issue with Office again.
While you're looking for that, this is Tina, and I thought today's conversation has also given me a lot of different ideas here for our organization for internal exercises.
I'm glad. I'm hopeful that everybody will get something out of today besides just, getting to hear my chipper voice on only 4 cups of coffee. But I think I found it. Okay, so let me throw this up here and let me know if you can see this. So yeah, this is an old edition, but this is basically what we're looking at. So like everything else, you know, we have all of the normal. Here's our description as to what it is. Again, it is that living document. It's not going to be something that just gets done and done. We will have to review it when we do an exercise, when we do a training. If we find something new, this will be where we can build on it. Like we talked earlier, you know, the purpose is to do the capability-based training. We want to build around the things that we know we need, and those capabilities are found inside of the draft documentation that came from ASPR and the HPP. The Foundation for Healthcare and Medical Readiness, Medical Response Coordination, Service Delivery, and Medical Surge. We've looked back over some of that from the previous billing periods, or budget periods, I'm sorry, that we looked at earlier, and talked some about what we've done in the past, what we want to do going forward. The areas you see highlighted were things that I was tinkering with and haven't finished, but yeah, this is our methodology and tracking, how we want to do it, what our cycles are going to be. Some of this will not be in the final document simply because it's not needed. When we looked at different program priorities, we talked about the hazmat. What are we targeting? What are the capabilities? And not just for HPP, but also for FEP, because we do have a close tie-in with our partners from public health. And then what type of topics courses would support some of that? So the decon ops that we do, the CBRNE courses that we've brought in previously and done from TEACS and through the various different federal programs. Same thing with the Hazmat IQ, the Tox Medic. It's great for our fire and EMS partners. When we look at the second domain that we talked about was the healthcare resilience. How can we be better prepared? When we talk about the training, Gary alluded to some of it earlier, talking about the CHEP course and the benefit he got from it. Well, there's another program called Framework or Frame, which is the same kind of concept. Again, looking at things for mass fatalities. We had a pretty good challenge with mass fatalities in the country, not just regionally, but everywhere. This kind of helps to address some of that. They have some pretty good material out there. It's actually in the process of being revised as we speak. Same thing with community healthcare planning in response to disasters. Most of these are going to be federal courses. They're things that they don't cost us anything to bring them in. We just have to meet the minimum student counts. The bombing incidents course, mass care. This one's something that, I tried to get it in, and unfortunately it just did not work out because of COVID rolling in. But this got into some things that would have been beneficial during COVID because we had mass care operations being done when we were housing, whether it's, potentially exposed or, family members that were families of potentially exposed, trying to, keep people isolated. It talked a good bit about that type of material, and unfortunately it just wasn't possible. We just did the pediatric disaster and emergency response. They also offer, again, a disaster preparedness for the healthcare that focuses somewhat on infrastructure, but also focuses on preparing your staff so that when things go south, they can still show up to work. And then on the exercise front, we know we have to do the coalition surge test. And this just kind of helps to, when we talk about capability and training priorities, these are the capabilities, and these are just some of the things that would kind of fall under those realms. One thing, and Phil and I've talked about it in the past, and I think, Phil, it's actually something we really ought to review going forward, is, again, the COOP, the continuity of operations. We're all going to be facing a period here very shortly where we have to submit paperwork to the government regarding all of the things we've done for them during COVID to ensure we get reimbursed as an organization. And I think that's something we probably ought to look at going forward, is some additional training for the folks who that is their responsibility. Now, when we look at the medical surge, oh, look, Sue's acronym is on here. I just didn't know what it meant. ENPC. So now I know. I will look at that going forward. When we talk, this is another draft, sort of something we looked at. We never fully finished it, but this talks about whether it's a training and exercise. What's the frequency of it? Is it quarterly, annually, so on and so forth? This is what we were kind of proposing when Eric and I were working on this earlier. And it also talks about kind of where it came from. Was it, the communications drills? We do those quarterly. Automatically, they have to be done. We do them every Tuesday, as y'all know, for all the hospitals. But that's something that's there. We've got these contracted courses. These are things that we pay for out of grant dollars to bring in to do training for us. The FEMA funded, those are the things like the TEACS course that we just had. It's all paid for with federal dollars. We just have to request it and facilitate the instructors, make sure they have the facilities they need, they have all the resources. Something we did earlier this year, I don't remember if we briefed it out or not, but mystery patient drills. These are things that, we've got a pretty good little packet we can send out that helps with that if anybody's interested. We did a lot of work, a lot of prep work to build up for that. And I'll just say that exercise for us went differently than we expected. It went really well, a little too well in some instances. But, those are things that, again, we can kind of help provide you some information on. The earthquake response, the Great Shakeout, we did a really great program. Phil developed it a couple years back. It's worked well for us. I believe it was shared out with everybody back then, but we can certainly send that out again. And it's a great resource for your facility folks when you're doing your environment of care rounds. The various conferences, we list them because, typically if there's a conference and we can send people, we try to send people. You getting that outside perspective from other facilities in the country and how they handle things, whether it's Joint Commission, the Coalition Conference, the Emergency Management Conferences. Lord willing, IDPH will get to have their summit next year, and we can all see each other's, or at least half of each other's face. I figure we'll probably still be in masks by then, but maybe we'll get to see each other. Certifications, the ChemPAC, again, that's our big one. We're spending a good bit of money with a vendor to actually develop a program that will help us really make sure we are as well prepared as possible for that front. And this just kind of keeps going. You can see the dates keep going. Some of this material recycles, and it's things that we think are beneficial. And these were just things that were suggested. I will be sending the draft of this out after this meeting once we get all of our notes and everything and make the tweaks where necessary. This also does, again, it highlights the different capabilities. We've got it broken down in here so that you can see, and this is all verbatim directly from the federal plan, or the federal guidance, I should say. But same thing with the FEP, their scores are in here. We've got a list as we get, FEP's got way more requirements than we do. Be grateful you're in a hospital. When we get on a coalition search test, we break that down. So if you've got new people like Sonia, I don't know what your experience with you and Julie, is as far as the surge test, if you've participated previously. But this will help you to understand what's going to be involved, because you will definitely be integral in the execution of that exercise. And then again, at the end, we have the list of training resources. And, I try to break down all of the different federally funded programs. These are free. They don't cost us a penny. The things that we either pay for or have paid for, benefited from using grant funding, those are in here as well. And then things that are offered locally, that's all broken down, and where links are available, it's in here. So this will be coming out. Hopefully, if Eric and I can get this done, it'll probably be the beginning of next week before we actually can get it sent out, because y'all saw there's a bunch of yellow. It's got to be tweaked still. But overall, this is a pretty solid guide. It's still got some revisions to be made. So I welcome any and all input. When we put it out to you, we'll try to get a final document done and ready to roll as quick as we get feedback back. That's really about all I have. Eric, Phil, do you guys have anything that you'd like to add in?
Nothing crazy. I would like to just thank everybody for participating. It's your input, that's going to help drive this as we're going forward. As Lee said, our document, what we want to put together, is not going to be a, just like with our plans, they're living documents. We'd like to update this, keep it kind of fresh. and, helping us move forward. If at all possible, the one thing that we try to shoot for is we don't want to always make everything when on the training side very, I'm going to say Belleville centric, if that makes sense. So we're always looking for a place to host the training, and we don't, it's convenient for us if it's here, but we do understand that, some folks, Tina's got to drive a long way to come down here for training. So we'd like to make it as well-rounded as we can and diverse in the locations we hold that training. So if you're willing to either host something at your location or just do the legwork in providing or looking for a location near you, it could be a local firehouse, could be a local school or what have you. That really, really helps us because the logistics side of this is something that, as you guys know from probably hosting trainings or otherwise at your location, the logistics part of it kind of is what really takes the life out of a lot of, takes a little bit of the wind out of your sails, especially if you're trying to do this often. So we could always use the help there. But again, thanks for everybody participating. And I don't have anything else.
So one thing I'm going to ask of everyone per the initial part of our conversation when we talked about your ham radio folks. I said earlier, give them my contact information. You can do that, but better yet, have them sign up for Member Planet. That way they are invited to everything that we send out and they get involved because I think that would be a great way to kind of bring them into the fold, if you will. At the same time, again, I'm happy to speak to them and we'll try to set up some kind of a radio component during a drill or an exercise so that we can test it and see really, maybe heat map out who can hit what and go from there. Trust me, the radio guys will love doing that part. And from our side, it's beneficial because if STARCOM fails, which for us, it fails regularly. If it fails region-wide, that gives us that third layer we can try to fall back on. But it just dawned on me about Member Planet, so I figured I'd bring that back out. Other than that, Eric, if you don't have anything, then I will give you guys back the rest of your day, and we will follow up with you as soon as we can get this document updated from today.
Can I ask a quick question? This is Julie at Greenville.
Sure, go right ahead.
I'm of course going to be working closely with Ashley White in learning this role, and I know you mentioned earlier a possible course for
Correct.
People who are new to this role. Are there any other recommendations or suggestions that you have just to help me out as far as, learning what we're doing here?
So yeah, there's actually a lot of, if you're not afraid of computer-based trainings, which right now it seems to be the in thing, there's a lot of computer-based training available. And I can send you some links to some things that would probably benefit you. And Julie, I apologize. I don't know what your background is. Are you clinical, non-clinical?
I am a registered nurse with a background in ER and I'm no longer a PHRN, but was a PHRN for a while, but have never served in an emergency preparedness role.
Okay, no, that helps. I can send you some information that'll make sense to you. So I'll send you some links, and if you have any questions, you can always hit up myself or Eric or Phil. We'll be happy to give you whatever we can, and of course Brad and Ashley and crew can help with it as well.
I also suggest reaching out to other leading coordinators in the region, because that's what I did when I first became the coordinator. I reached out not only to Phil and Eric, but Eric and Anderson, even Greg and IDPH, and I reached out to everybody, and I still do because I'm still learning. So just reach out to other leading coordinators. They'll help you. I found out everybody in the region is more than glad to help you. So they'll help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are a family-friendly group. We all seem to get along pretty well. So that actually has been really nice. Um, at that point, I mean, if there is anything else, please, please, please let us know. We want to try to make this the best for everyone.
Thank you.
Eric, any parting words?
No, you guys, I think everything's been covered. Well, like I said, I guess we'll communicate from email from here. So if something comes up, we can address it that way. And then kind of what Phil's saying is we have our monthly and quarterly Hope Coalition meetings. So if something comes up then that, needs to be addressed, we can definitely have them chime in with that subject and then allow some time to kind of figure it out and get back to you.
Yeah, we'll do just a quick brief out, I guess, at the next monthly meeting, just on where we're at, since we didn't get. There were 34 originally that responded back saying they were going to be here. I know a couple of them were out because of conflicting things, but we'll brief it out just to make sure everyone else knows when we have the next get together. But with that, then I will bid you all adieu and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Phil and Eric.
Thank you.